Derby Day approaches for the Addicts. Can we end 28 years, is it, at this point? Worth of pain? Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the 13th episode of the From the Valley Floyd podcast. My name is Callum, and it is the big one on Saturday. The South East London Derby returns to the Valley. 22,000, I think they're saying at the moment. That's probably ticked up in the last couple of days as the Addicts prepare to try and finally break the hoodoo against a lot from down the road. Just a couple of quick bits of housekeeping before we get started in earnest. Apologies, I was going to do a podcast last week. A couple of things popped up and I wasn't able to come on to do sort of a bit of a transfer window review, so I will do that during this episode. I was supposed to have a Millwall fan on. I did find somebody, but that's unfortunately fallen through at the last minute. So unfortunately, you're going to have to listen to my dulcet tones for the next half an hour or so. Yeah. So hello, Sam. Sam's in the chat. I showed this earlier. Yeah. So I was also going to chat on that podcast I was going to do last week about some of the loyalty point stuff. The club have been messing around with that, so it's actually been quite difficult. I was doing some research on it, and they seem to be sort of slightly messing about. So it's a bit difficult for me to talk through. But I'll talk through some of the sort of ticketing sort of issues we're having. Probably during the next international break. Hopefully, I get a chance to record another pod. Apologies for those watching. I've got a light right above my head, so it looks a little bit like I've been beamed down from heaven. And to those of you listening on the podcast, that probably means absolutely nothing to you. Just so you guys listening know, we do go live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. So if you're free, come join the pre-match from the Valley Floyd. Is the name of the YouTube channel. Come subscribe, come join. And we're about to go over 1,000 listens, so I just want to say thank you so much, everybody. This episode, if my math works, will take us over that number, so that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all so much. I will do something over the next couple of weeks to sort of celebrate those sort of milestones. We'll have some merch and different things, so we'll do a bit of a giveaway. We'll see. All right, with all the housekeeping out of the way, let's chat the game against the Lions. I want to start by talking about some of the sort of I think misinterpreted facts, maybe overstated facts, overestimated facts, maybe about the rivalry between Charlton and Millwall over the last sort of couple of decades. Yeah, it's been 28 years, 29 years, whichever one it is. I should look that up before I came live, but I was working. But we've only played each other 12 times in that time frame, right? It's not exactly like we've lost 25 games against them or anything. It's it's 12 games, right? Which is a bad run against anybody, but it's not, it's not Norwich and Ipswich, where, what is it now? Is it 16? Is it 16 games, 18 games or something? This year they easily could get close to 20 if Norwich win or Ipswich don't win either of those games. So it's not quite as bad as everyone sort of says it is. But it's a bad record. And there's no way really around that. It's an embarrassing record. It's one we'd very much like to end. I know it's one that Nathan Jones has sort of pointed out in the calendar and said, yeah, I'd like to end that record. I can imagine that he's creating sort of a batten down the hatch attitude today, tomorrow, and Friday ahead of the game. It's going to be loud. It's going to be busy for anyone that's going. Please make sure you get yourself down early. I'm expecting some sort of email communication from the club this week to sort of explain entrances, exits, what we can and can't do. Just a reminder to anybody going to the game as well that depending on which way you're travelling, West Ham played Tottenham and Brentford played Chelsea as well on Saturday. I think Arsenal are at home So there's a lot of Fulham are at home. There's a lot of London clubs at home. Like Norwich are at home if you're going east, like I am. So just make sure you sort of pay attention to that. Get to the game early because I think it's going to be a very busy day in London. There's a march which I'm not going to talk about because I'm not getting political on here, which is just happening in central London. So please be careful, everybody. Look out for yourself, and hopefully it'll be a good day of football, and we can win the derby. But Millwall are a really interesting start to the season. They won both their away games. They've lost both their home games. And they seem to be really good against teams that come at them. Sort of Alex Neil football, it's quite high press. It's quite get after someone. But if someone sits back, then they're not necessarily the greatest at breaking side down. You can hit them on the counter. They can't hit you on the counter. So you're in this sort of thing where, so if you look at the goals Middlesbrough scored, a lot of it was Millwall getting frustrated, trying to break down the press, turn the ball over. Middlesbrough go down the other end. Is it every London club outside of Tottenham, Sam? I think Sam's looking at all London clubs at home. I think it's literally Tottenham are the only London side that aren't at home, and all the way through to like League One. One of them, Millwall are only just down the road, and I think Tottenham are just down the road as well because they're at West Ham. So, yeah, it's going to be a busy day. But yeah, so if you look at Millwall at the moment, they're much better away from home. They seem to, and that presents a sort of challenge. We're not exactly high possession anyway, even at home. We let Leicester have the ball. It's basically 50-50 against Watford, 52-48 or something. So we're not exactly going to be on the ball all the time, and I think that will work in our favour. I'd be really interested in hearing, for those of you that are in the comments, whether you would make any changes to the starting 11 that played against Queen's Park Rangers. I think this is always a really difficult question. For me, now I know Tyrese Campbell played 60 minutes for Jamaica last week. Earlier in the week. Was it yesterday? Is he going to rest him, right? It's a long way to travel. He's played an hour. He's played probably in very hot conditions. Do you give him a rest? Fans have been on his back a little bit. Maybe it sort of makes sense to give him a rest here, but my question would be then who comes in? Does I guess probably it's Kelman. You probably start Liebert and Kelman together. I think all of the excuses about players not being sharp enough or fit enough, that's over now, right? We've just had the first international break. Nobody joined the deadline day except for James Bree, and I don't see him starting. So outside of that, everybody else has been here at least, 5 weeks? So, yeah, so Paul's kind of the ideal excuse to rest TC. It may be. But I think that might be the only change I make. If it was me, I think I would start Kelman. I can understand why you might want to start Oluwafe, but I think I'd rather bring Oluwafe on against a tired defense. That's just me. Once they're sort of tired, maybe bring him in to sort of slightly stretch the game out a little bit. I don't think you change anything in the back six. I thought the back six were pretty much to a man absolutely terrible outside of Rob Apter. On against Queen's Park Rangers. Paul's agreeing with me. Agreed, Miles and CK. I think that makes the most sense. You can bring Tyrese and Oluwafe on against a tired backline. That makes sense. And also Bender in the Millwall goal is not obviously Jensen. Is he out for the season or is he out for the new year? He's out for a while anyway. So they brought in Bender, who was the backup at Fulham. Made a couple of errors already. I'd like to sort of put the ball in the box a lot, and so I think that having Miles in there is important. But I think maybe having sort of a Kelman in there to sort of poach. They've got Paul here saying, "Can we move Sonny to the left?" You could, but I don't think he's a forward. Personally, I think I'd like to see Nibs play. I don't think Sonny was actually bad against QPR. I don't think he really got into the game particularly outside of playing well with Apter. I'm sure there were people that disagree with that take, and that's absolutely fine. I like Kerry. I think he's a good player, but I've always thought that bringing Nibs in was I think he's going to start a lot of games. I wonder if that's the other change that you make. So maybe you bring Callum in for TC, get TC kind of out of the firing line a little bit, and also considering his international commitment, and then you bring Nibs in to start sort of crash the box a little bit more. I think that could be an option. Midfield, I don't think he's going to change. Yeah, I don't think he's going to change. Change that. Outside maybe of that. Outside of maybe making that change with Nibs and Fakiri. I think Doherty was okay against QPR. He didn't do anything wrong. Still some issues about this technical ability at that level. I would be intrigued to see a Coventry ranking Costello, Nibs front three, midfield three. I don't know if it would work, but I'd be interested to see it. A bit more technical ability back there. I don't think Coventry had his greatest game against QPR either, if I'm honest. So I don't think anyone in that back sort of 7 or 8 really stood out. I don't think anyone really stood out, minus maybe Rob Apter. Maybe you put Bree on the bench. You've got someone to spell Apter at that 70-minute mark, which doesn't mean you have to bring Tyrese Campbell on and play him at fullback. We've got an update here on the kickoff times from Sam. So it's going to be QPR are away yet, so everybody else is at home. Everybody else at home. You might not see Chelsea fans because they're not playing Brentford till 8, and that's actually just down the road from them. But yeah, Spurs away to West Ham. That's a pretty tasty rivalry for anyone that's travelling around that bit, right, the same as me. Arsenal are at home at 3 o'clock. I think Fulham are at home at 3 o'clock. So just if you're out and about, just there'll be a lot of football fans around. So just be careful, look after yourselves. Get home safe, do what you need to do. But yeah, I mean, I think that maybe I'd make 2 changes. I think that's what I'd do. I'd bring Nibs in, not because I don't think Gary's been good. I do. I just like a bit of box crashing, and I think Nibs gives me that. I think there's a passion term that I like in a rivalry game. I hate using things like passion or sort of laziness as terms. I don't think they're particularly useful when it comes to chatting about footballers. I don't think it tells you very much. However, in a derby game, I think that sort of passion can actually be something that you use. So personally, I think I'd bring Nibs in, and I'd bring Callum in for TC just based on international commitments. If it wasn't for the international commitments, I think it'd be a slightly different conversation. But I know that would put me in the minority. But for me, I think that's the sort of change that you make. I think the thing you're really focused on is that Millwall have some issues at fullback. They don't have great fullback. Alfie Doughty is a great fullback, but Doughty's obviously out. And then they've got injuries. I think it's absolutely everywhere. They've got injuries. So I don't know why that'd be. Yeah, Sam, I've noticed this too, actually, going back to Excel. Haven't noticed that Bell hasn't played a minute for Jamaica. Hopefully nothing to worry about. I noticed that, and he's the Jamaica captain. So that leads you to believe that there may be something in that. He's not just a squad player for Jamaica. He's the squad captain. The fact he hasn't played a minute, maybe he's gone to Steve McLaren. Don't play me. I don't see that happening. I don't think anyone does that for their country. And if he did, why on earth are you showing up? The World Cup qualifiers, I think Jamaica probably will qualify, which for me is a very nice thing. But I do think that that's something to pay attention to. Fortunately, I don't think Mac is such a big problem here because I think Finn Aziz is injured for Millwall. I think it's 7 injuries they've got or something silly. So they're not coming in, in great form, and they're not coming in great injury nick. Now, I know this really hasn't mattered over the last however many years that we've played them, but it is an important thing, right? Backup keepers in there, not, 2 really unrecognised fullbacks. A very good defensive line, it must be said, the centre-back especially. Caleb Taylor, who's very, very good for Wickham against us, but perhaps given the pace and power of Nalibran up front, maybe you can give him something different to think about. I did mention to someone actually when I talked about Millwall. I said I think Millwall will be, as much as it pains me, I think they'll be battling for sort of a top 6 spot. But I thought if you lose Tanganga, I think that's a big loss. I think Caleb Taylor's a really good replacement, but I don't think he's the same level of player. I think a player making the step up from basically just playing in League One to the Championship is very different to Tanganga, who came down from the Premier League to League One, just in terms of natural ability, maybe. I've just jinxed that, and Caleb Taylor will be the best player on the pitch. We know that. Sam saying at least Macca and Jones worked well. Yeah, it did. I mean, that doesn't worry me too much, knowing that Aziz is injured. They've still got pace down the wings. They've still got Ivanovic, a really good forward. Right, they didn't sell him in the end. I think that we do have to be really careful here, right? This is a game where it's like you're at home in a derby game. You're going to want to go gung ho from kickoff, and I think we actually need to calm that down a little bit. And we're really interested to see how Nathan sort of approaches this game, right? The hoodoo, all the rest of it. There's sort of banana skins all over the place. I think players like Kaminsky will probably want to, make an impression following a really poor display against QPR. I think players like Jones and Ramsey hopefully will be back in it. Ramsey in the high pressure games last year, I thought was always actually very good. I think he just had an off day against QPR. I don't worry about Lloyd Jones, particularly in most games. So I think should be absolutely fine. And then Josh Edwards, it's a difficult assignment, right? You've got pace on that side. But again, I like Josh Edwards. I think he'll be okay, and I think Coventry. It's difficult in all these areas in the Championship, right? There's no one you're going to play who's not going to be an excellent side, but you've got to. I think so much of the problem that we've had in the last couple of games has been against Leicester when we played well. We didn't finish our chances, but the ball went through the midfield. We weren't bypassing it. Against QPR, we were bypassing it, and they were bypassing us. And that's a really big problem. I think the pitch was almost too big, which doesn't make much sense. I don't think Loftus Road is a particularly large pitch. And I just don't think we showed up. I think that we've taken a break now, take a breath, go again. And I think after QPR, I think what was very interesting was how calm Nathan was. He wasn't raging. He wasn't getting annoyed. He wasn't annoyed about the referee, about the missed second yellow card, and that's fair enough. But he was actually pretty calm. And so for me, I think that he probably realised, hey, my team's had a bad day at the office. There's no point sort of, giving everyone a rollicking. He probably did that in private. It's put this one away, have the break, and come back. I'm trying to sort of think of a way to not have to sort of think about some of the awful measures. I remember in the Championship season, it must have been maybe it was right before COVID when Millwall scored in the 78th and 80th minute or something. It was a really valuable point. Came down the end and just slotted one past Dylan Phillips, and that was. It's a really hard one to kind of get up for as a Charlton fan, right? You sort of know, there's gonna be a lot of us in the valley. We need to make noise. We need to do all these things, but it's difficult, right? Because you just look at that game and you go, we don't beat this lot. I remember in pre-season we had a lead against them, was it 2-0? And then Eichstead made a mistake, and then they came down and scored. And the game didn't matter, right? It was pre-season, but it just feels the same as when we play Portsmouth, right? It just feels as if whatever they do, they cannot beat us, right? Whatever form they're in, whatever form we're in. So the thing for me would be how Nathan sort of breaks that up. I think the best way you do that is you got absolutely nobody that played in that game the last time he played Millwall is at the club anymore. In terms of the Championship game, obviously a couple from the preseason one probably are still around, but I think a couple of squad changes. I think the two maybe in that front sort of area, and then probably we need to freshen up just a little bit. Who knows about Bell? We'll have to wait and see. I think Bell could be really useful in a game like this, actually, because of his ability to sort of break a press. I think else I'd like to press. I don't think as much as I'm sort of defended Maka over the years, I don't think Maka is necessarily a great press resistant defender. He's sort of big, long, whooped, sort of long balls take a while to leave his feet, and if you're being high pressed, that's a challenge. I got this from Paul here. We had some more documented blips last season. Hopefully, QPR is a case of one down and we don't have another for a good while. Just to start finding that. Exactly that. I think if we can win a game 2-0 at some point, hopefully this weekend, I think that will help. We just need to score a couple in a league game. I know we did this last season. We started and just didn't score very often. The other thing that would be very interesting to find out is just how far away Matt Godden is from being back. If it was a small surgery and they said 6 weeks, he had it, about 4.5 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago now. So he should be on his way back. I know Luke Berry had a bit of a setback following showing up and scoring a goal against Stevenage. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But look, this is a really difficult game this season. Get down early. If you're, Sam, I've got a small feeling we could get a win. So do I, actually. I'm just going to actually come back to bite me. I'm going to be really depressed on Sunday when I do the post match. But I do as well, Sam. I have a really small feeling that just maybe we're going to end this sort of hoodoo against the noisy neighbours. So we'll see. We'll see on Saturday. So get yourselves down early. I always say it before games, go support the local economies. There are pubs in Woolwich that are open earlier, pubs in Greenwich. And was down at the Riverdale House, had the toffee apple cider before the game against Leicester. It's absolutely fantastic, and they're open from 10. The Elephant Castle's open from God knows what time in the morning. Get down, support. Do what you need to do. This is really this is one of those games where it's the community, right? So derby games are about community versus community, right? In a battle sort of for pride. So make sure you support your community. Get down, be loud. Let's get the Valley really up for it. Let's get it rocking. Let's make it difficult for them. And then we're just gonna have to hope. Just gonna have to hope for the best, really. Hopefully Nathan says post-match that Goddard has been on the grass. That would be nice. That's normally the telltale signs. It doesn't tell us anything, but that's normally the telltale signs that he's the players are on their way back. I think Berry, from what I was reading, and this may be true, maybe not, he was just a couple of weeks behind. Okay, let's chat just the summer transfer window as a whole. Just before we kind of go through each one individually. Obviously, the news on deadline day, James Bree came in from Southampton on a 6-month loan, which to me basically confirmed the signing of Fukuda from the Japanese. Is it the J League 2? Or is it the J League 1? I think it's the J League 2 Fukuda's in. But I think that basically confirms that he most certainly is Bobby the Addict's top target in January. I think that was pretty obvious anyway. The fact that Bree is just a loan, even if you don't get Fukuda, you can just extend that. Southampton don't want him back. James Bree sort of follows Nathan Jones wherever he goes. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a functional player, really good dead ball player. He's a centre back. So it should be I think it's a decent squad signing. There are people losing their minds over the Luton connections or the Southampton. I just think some people are just, what do you want? The director of football is the former director of football of Luton. The manager is a former manager of Luton. You're going to sign a lot of Luton players. This happens at any football club, right? If the club were bothered about that, they wouldn't have hired Chappell, and I think Chappell's done a very good job. Got a thing from Sam just before we go on to Fofana. Don't we normally stand together against Nightcrawler? We play each other. Surprised we're not continuing. We do. I think probably with the situation with everything the way it is at the moment. Again, I don't want to get political on this podcast at all, but just with everything that's kind of going on in the background, I think probably. It is the smart thing. It's just to focus on the football. I'm sure they'll do some stuff. I know that no crime is a problem both in Charlton and in Bermondsey. So but I think probably they're just trying to to get through it, if that makes sense. Maybe someone someone's listening from the community trust, something they may have a better idea. If you do, feel free to let me know, X or email. Right. Going back to the transfer window. What was interesting to me is we woke up in the morning and David Datro Fofana was signed by Chelsea from Mulder for 10 million quid. And then sort of kind of been out on loan. He had a serious knee injury in Turkey last year, I think. Year before that, he was at Burnley, had no cases, and it wasn't great. Before that was at Union Berlin, didn't really work out. He's a player with quite a lot of potential, can play off the wing and up front. It sounded like we were interested, Preston were interested, Celtic were interested, and you thought, okay, we rank those clubs, Celtic, and then probably one of Preston or us. And Preston quite quickly were knocked out of that race, if you kind of followed that. And then, for some reason, he decided on Celtic and then changed his mind. But he seemed to change his mind so late that we couldn't then get the paperwork done. It sounds like from the research that I've done that it was an issue on the Chelsea end, it wasn't an issue on the Charlton end. But I think this is the fourth straight window now, right, in winter and summer, where we've missed out on a player on deadline day because of registration. We started trying the winger, didn't we? Jershon Bennett from Sunderland, was it? Last season, and he and the paperwork didn't go in. So I don't know why this paperwork issue seems to be a thing. I think it's probably the same at most lowly clubs, but I think the Fofana thing probably said that Nathan was looking at it, maybe I would like one more option up front. We signed a lot of strikers, but I think he probably went, if I can sign a player of that quality, a player that probably would, really battle to start every week, it may be good business. But in the end, it seemed to fall apart, which is disappointing. I think a lot of people probably overreact, and a lot of people, who cares? I'm somewhere in the middle. I think we were a really good player to add. I was quite excited reading things saying that he'd chosen us, but I didn't think it was the end of the season when it didn't go through. I think I'm sort of somewhere in between. I think it's been a good signing, but he didn't sign, so let's move on. Maybe we'll go back in January. Who knows? So let's go through the window then in terms of players that have come in. Obviously we started with, and I don't know if I'm gonna get this order 100% right, so forgive me. We started with the sort of surprise signing of Sonny Carey, who I think has been better than I thought it was going to be. I think that he's a good player at championship level so far from what I've seen, but I think there's also limitations in his game. But for a player that cost us nothing, I think he's had a good relationship with Rob Apter. I think that that he presses well, he runs hard, he tries. He takes a couple of shots from outside the box that have been blocked, but if those sort of gone through him against Leicester, a couple of them look like they could have been dangerous. He's a player that I think most of us probably look at and go, I like him. Right? I think he was very, very good against Bristol. Probably hasn't been quite as good in the 2 games after that, but he's a good player and a really good squad player, I think, to have. I think ultimately, as I said at the start of the pod, I think Nibs will ultimately end up playing that position from the off. We followed that up by finally upgrading a position that I think we've needed to upgrade for a very long time, which was in goal. Thomas Kaminski came in from Luton Town. I think it was 900,000 was the amount they were quoting. I still think it's going to be a good signing. He's going to drive me absolutely nuts because he will not come for crosses. I know this. He did not cover himself with glory against QPR. But I think, again, sometimes it's, players need to get used to each other. He didn't know whether to come or go. And I think that part of that's hesitancy. Part of it is just not knowing, the players that are playing in front of you. I think he looks a lot more comfortable when it comes down Bell's side than he does when it comes down Ramsey's side. And that's, familiarity. I still think ultimately he'll keep us in a lot more games than he costs us. And I think that there is a very good goalkeeper in there. He's also won stuff, which I think is quite important. We don't have a dressing room that's won a lot of stuff. So having that in there, I think, is good. He's a big goalkeeper. He takes up a lot of room. So I like the signing. We'll have to see what it looks like in the sort of more medium to longer term. I thoroughly disagree with those saying that we should bring Will Mannion in after 4 games. I think that's I just think that's the wrong decision. Murray Bell, player I like. I think he's actually been much better than I thought it was going to be. A lot of Luton fans made it sound as if he's playing on one leg. That's obviously not true. I think he's a good player. I think he's been good sort of on the ball, maybe off the ball a couple of times slightly out of position, but really good, sort of really press resistant, and that's really important to have said because I think that you have that now on both sides. Ramsey's very press resistant, Bell's very press resistant. They can both drive, so I like that. You look at the other signings in attack. Oluwafe, I just haven't seen much from him. Stockport fantasy gives you everything except for the finish. I just haven't seen much from him. I'd like to see sort of more. Kelman, I think, will be a good signing ultimately. He's just not been match sharp, and for a striker, you just need one goal sometimes. Hopefully, he'll get that goal quickly and be able to add a couple. I still think that he's a good enough finisher that he'll score a couple just by virtue of that. And then it was Harvey Nibbs, who's a player that I actually think has been pretty poor in 3 games after he scored the goal against Watford. It's a great moment. There's a great clip on Sky Sports. Watch the highlights. You'll see me losing my mind. But yeah, I think that we need to see more from him than we have. Joe Rankin Costello, I just haven't seen much again. I would try him at some point. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to stick with Doherty until, for as long as he can. He's club captain. Fair enough. I understand that. But I'd like to see a little bit more of Costello. I'd like to see him come into games a lot earlier. He's coming in the 88th minute and different things. I think he needs to be coming in 70 minutes in, maybe get Doherty off if we're trailing, a bit more sort of technical ability in there. So I'd like to see that. And then, as I said, the final signing was obviously James Bree, who none of us have seen anything from. But I don't think we will. I think he's injured. I think he's injured out until sort of the midpoint of September. So, although we're on the 10th now, so maybe won't be fit enough for this week, but maybe he'll be back for the game away at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United. All right, we've hit the half an hour mark. Got this from Sam. Might see Nathan give Nibs Callum or half a more minutes on the 50-minute mark. I don't quite know about 50. I think most managers like to change it about 60. I'm honest, Sam, so I think he'll probably wait until the hour mark. So yeah, we've kind of hit the half an hour point. I think it's probably a good place to kind of wrap up the preview. Again, apologies, been slightly all over the place. My Millwall guy fell through, so not for any bad reason. Just had a last minute engagement, so sort of messed around with what I've been able to do. But with that, I'm going to come off now. I will see you all on Sunday. It may end up being a Monday evening, if I'm honest, depending on what I'm doing on Sunday afternoon. I've got a very busy Sunday, so we'll see what I can fit in. But yeah, it's a big game this weekend. Every game in the Championship is huge. How nice would it be to get one up over our noisy neighbours, and finally end that curse. If there's a manager I think can do it, is Nathan Jones. Let's find out if he can on Saturday in SC7. All right, everyone, have a good rest of your evening. Enjoy the Chronicles for those who are going to go watch that, and I will see you for the post match up the Attics.